welcome to another episode of CapEd Mix Podcast. I'm Matt Johnson in marketing, and today I'm joined by Andrea Kinslow, as always, from our training department. How's it going, Andrea?
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, as always. I'm glad you could join us. And it's October, and because it's October, we decided to do kind of a scary episode. Can you guess what it's about?
Ooh, scary. Maybe fraud.
That's right. We're talking about fraud. And we have Tyler Harris, who used to work in our branches. He's now in marketing, and he's going to be interviewing some of his coworkers, two in the branches, one in our compliance department. And they're going to be talking about actual things that they've observed, things that they've caught, things where, people who bank with us have, people have been trying to get their money through various means. And it's pretty interesting.
That's crazy. Our frontline staff does an amazing job to save members from fraud.
Yep, they really do. Yeah, and I know that's something that you talk about in training before they go out to the branches. So just awesome effort all around.
Yes.
Well, it's a pretty long episode, so I think we'll jump right into it, and we'll chat afterwards.
Thanks.
So I've got Judah Lovato here, and Judah, would you mind introducing yourself and tell me a bit what you do and how long you've been with CapEd?
Yeah, sure. So like you said, I'm Judah Lovato. I'm a roaming PFR here at CapEd. Been here about 2 years now. So what I do is, process loans, take basic transactions on occasion, and just help the members as best I can. That's what I got.
That's awesome. I know in the branches, you guys see the majority of fraud, scams, people questioning online things that come to you, or if they've fallen victim to scams and they've lost money. How often do you see fraudulent activity occur, would you say?
So actually, especially lately, I feel like I'm seeing almost at least a case a week. I feel like the last few months I've seen more, like especially debit card fraud, where either their information was compromised, so they're getting bogus transactions, or people, really common ones, people enrolling in a free trial and then they don't realize it renews. So them just arguing with businesses there. I feel like lately I've seen more card numbers being compromised, getting the bogus transactions, test transactions, things like that.
Gosh, that's so crazy. That's scary too. I know a little statistic that I found: every month around 1.5 million new phishing websites are set up.
Holy cow.
I know, and people do a lot of online shopping. They do fall into that and get their debit cards compromised, and it's scary. It's terrifying. And even at least once a week here with CapEd, I can't imagine other institutions all around the U.S. and the world, even how many times people fall victim to fraud.
Oh, it's insane.
Yeah, it is really crazy. Would you mind sharing a story that you have come across personally with fraud that might stick out in your head most that you've come across?
Yeah, the one that sticks out most for me is actually a case where a member had put a car for sale on Craigslist, and the buyer was from out of state. So they said, hey, we'll get this shipped. I'm going to send you a check to pay for the shipping and all that. So they were trying to coordinate the member taking the car to a specific person who would then load the car and ship it cross country. One of the bigger flags is that the buyer was saying, hey, I need you to pay. I'm going to send you a check to include the shipping cost. I'll have you pay the shipper and then give the title to the shipper as well. Then the check itself was really kind of strange looking from what I saw. But just that story, like most legitimate buyers, they don't want to trust the seller with handling that kind of information. A legitimate buyer would want to handle that themselves, would want to know all the variables, because the buyer wouldn't want to lose the car either or be scammed. So a big flag for me is that the buyer was wanting the member to take care of so much on the member side, paying the driver, giving the title to the driver. So as kind of a warning for people, just be aware of what the buyer or seller is asking you to do, and if they're wanting extra, if they're trying to have you handle an abnormal amount of tasks, that is a red flag, because most legitimate businesses or transactions will want to kind of keep things as in their control as possible, in my opinion anyway. But
Yeah. That's so crazy. I know the Craigslist scam, that it's an actual term that they've coined within the past decade for that specific reason, because it started on Craigslist. And just with that too, even social media, scammers are everywhere on there, and those approached by scammers on social media, 91% of those people engage with those scammers, and 53% of those said people have lost money from that. So it's an ever-changing thing. It's always growing, unfortunately, with scams and fraud. And I know ourselves, as well as those online businesses like Craigslist, they're changing everything that they can to stop this fraud and scam. And they always find a way back in.
yeah,
It's
ever
crazy.
evolving, as they say, adaptable if nothing else. I'll give them that. But
Yeah. Okay, Judah, what would you tell members going forward, and to those listening in right now, what would you tell people to look out for these scams? What's your expertise?
yeah, I'd say a common trend I see, especially in things like that, are again the buyer or the person having a huge rush to get things done is pretty common. It's like they're saying, "Hey, I need you to do this immediately. If you don't do this immediately, there's consequences." Or also, again, kind of asking the member to do too much. Like, "Hey, I need you to go to the store and get these gift cards. I need you to pay the driver and give the title. I need you to do X, Y, Z." Things like that are kind of abnormal, or what I think of as abnormal behavior from a legitimate business or transaction. Because again, most people, we want to be in control of what's going on. So relinquishing control like that is kind of a red flag for me. So that's something I'd say to look out for. And again, just that urgency. Like most legitimate people will say, "Okay, here's kind of our deadline, a couple days. So let's try and get that done by here," and they'll again give you the information to get things done accurately. Not always the case, of course, but just kind of look for them giving you specific information, giving you time, or kind of explaining why there's a rush. If they just say, "Hey, just rush it. Hey, don't worry about it," just that's a flag. And if you have questions like that, or if you're getting pressured from someone you think is legitimate but is being pressured like that, always talk to your financial institution, get a second pair of eyes on that transaction. Just say, "Hey, what is this?" And Google the business. If it's a business pressuring you, it's saying, "Hey, I need you to do this right away." If it's a legitimate business in Google, you can find their track record. You can get information on them, and again, just get other people involved that can help you prove the legitimacy.
Right, exactly. That's awesome. Thank you, Judah. I know when we work in financial institutions, we're trained on spotting these things. So I know whenever you feel not sure about anything as far as your finances go, talk to any one of us, and because we've seen it, we do see it all the time. So that's awesome.
Exactly. Just ask questions.
All right,
Check, double check.
thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, most certainly. Thanks for having me on, and hope we can spread the word and keep people educated.
Yeah, of course. All right, talk to you later. Chance Hartman and Chance, if you want to take a second to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of what you do and how long you've been with CapEd.
Hi, Tyler. Yeah, so I've been with CapEd for 7.5 years, and currently I'm the security and compliance specialist. Here in the security and compliance department, we kind of wear a lot of hats, from Bank Secrecy Act or BSA compliance to physical security to fraud detection, reporting, and things like that.
That's awesome. I know, like you said, you wear many hats. Um, my other interviewers, they're on the front line and they see firsthand, face-to-face scenarios with fraud quite often. I know you're more on the back end of things. So what are some common things that you see and that you deal with on a day-to-day basis when it comes to fraudulent activity or scams, spam, stuff like that?
Yeah, like you said, the front line, they get the brunt of it, but we see it all back here, from fraudulent check deposits, Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace scams. That's a big one. Romance or sweetheart scams. Those are unfortunately another big scam that we see a lot. Identity theft. More recently, we've been seeing unemployment fraud due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then another really big scam that I see that happens, it's targeting all ages, is a social media scam, using social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. Fraudsters, what they do is they duplicate profiles and then they start direct messaging their friends lists and try to get people to give out their online banking credentials or send them money. And it just kind of snowballs from there and just gets really bad really fast.
Yeah. Do you know what age group is most targeted? Because I know social media, it's all ages. I know my generation, I've seen people my age fall for scams around 26, 27. What age group do you see most often targeted?
Like I said, it's all age groups. Unfortunately, a lot of people will use the social media platforms for the romance scams. That we tend to see kind of hit the older generations, 50, 60, 70s. People in that age group sometimes, that their spouse dies or something, and they might be a little bit lonely. They're looking for a partner or companionship, and so people are hitting them up for um, a relationship, and then it turns into it's a, it, it's really a scam, and they defraud them out of thousands and thousands of dollars. And our members who are being defrauded, they really think it's a real relationship. They've been and some of these scams will take years to develop, to get the trust of the member. And then with the younger generation, we're seeing Snapchat fraud and Instagram fraud,
Mhm.
where they get a message from a friend saying, "Hey, I've got this really cool opportunity for us to earn some money. This is what we need to do. Just give me your online banking credentials and I'll deposit a check into your account." And so
Right.
it really, the age range is young to old and
All
everything
over
in
the
between.
place. Wow. I know with wires too, I was doing some research and it looks like wire fraud is the most common um, fraud type where we lose the most money. And it looks like what I saw in 2020, $50 billion was lost in wire fraud. Do you see that a lot?
We do. With at CapEd, we do have a lot of safety nets in place and a lot of security checks in place, and we've really trained our frontline to catch that. And so, um, I would say our wire fraud here is maybe a little bit less than maybe other institutions, just
Mhm.
because we take it seriously, and we kind of really check for that, ask our members a lot of questions, and really are verifying where the money's being sent, what the purpose is for, and asking sometimes those harder questions of, you know, do you know this person that you're sending the money to, things like that.
Mhm. That's good that we're so ready and prepared for things like this. On top of that too, is there anything else that you know that we have set in place that can help members and future frauds and preventing that?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually partner with a company called Merchants Information Solutions. They are identity theft protection product that our members can purchase. A link and the website can be found on our website under caped.com under our products and services. They've got a bunch of different packages that you can choose from monitoring your credit report to they look for stuff on the dark web under your name. So a really great product. And then I also suggest that members review their credit every year. You can get free credit reports under annualcreditreport.com. And that way you can kind of see if there's any accounts that are out there that you didn't open, or if maybe someone stole your identity. Just kind of being on top of it and being proactive is the best solution.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know on our app as well, members can check their credits score and play around with that as many times as they want to, and it's completely free. So it's great that we have all of this set in place to protect members. So I really do appreciate that input, Chance. Thank you for your input, Chance. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime I can be here to help our members.
Yeah, thank you so much. Alrighty, so my final guest, I've got Kai Rody. And Kai, if you can just give me a short introduction of yourself, how long have you been with CapEd and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Tyler, for having me. My name is Kai Rody. I have been with CapEd for just a little over 2 years, and I'm a service specialist here at one of our branches.
Perfect, awesome. So I know you are on the front line and you see people every single day. Our past guests that I've had on with this podcast, I had a little variety of people. I know we talked about kind of the future of fraud. A lot of it is electronic, online, but a lot of people don't realize that standard checks are still a huge part of fraudulent activity that we see here at the credit union. I know check fraud accounts for 47% of industry losses, amounting to around $1.3 billion in the US, which is a lot. So Kai, if you can share a couple stories that you have found with checks, fraudulent checks, things like that at your branch?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you're well aware, fraud happens everywhere. And most of the
Right.
fraud that I encounter is mostly with fake checks, whether it's fake business checks, fake cashier's checks, or any sort of those fraudulent items.
Mhm.
I know here on the front line, we do ask questions when it does come to checks in more of a suspicious nature. That's why whenever like a representative takes a look at the check or anything like that, that's one of the biggest things we're looking for is just making sure that the checks look legitimate, especially if they're coming from a business or if they're being issued by the branch itself, whether it's a cashier's check, an official check, or even a money order. I know when we do encounter these fraud checks, there's a lot of red flags that you immediately see, and then there's a lot of kind of red flags as well, but they're
Mhm.
almost on the back end. So they do take a little bit of digging in order to find out. I know some of the more common things with fraudulent checks are just taking a look at it and realizing that maybe the text is pixelated. Maybe there's a variety of font sizes or misspellings on the check, or just situations where maybe the dollar amount of the check just doesn't seem accurate or doesn't match kind of the situation or the story that's being provided. So I know a lot of the times with that, here at the front line, we do tend to ask questions. Were you expecting this check? Is this check written from someone you know? Did, these folks tend to ask for cash back? Do they ask you to buy gift cards? Do they ask you to do something extra with the additional value of the check itself? And so asking these questions isn't intended to be, getting into your business or trying to figure out what kind of deal you're on so we can jump in it too, being selfish in that nature. It's more along the lines of making sure that your information is safe and secure. You're not giving out information to someone who claims to be the IRS and wants gift cards or anything like that. We just want to make sure that everyone is being safe with their information. If it sounds too good to be true, unfortunately, it tends to be like that. You never hear about those people that, try to hit the lottery and first time $1 million winner.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, trusting your gut, that's a huge part of it. I know we are trained in doing that when we work at a financial institution, but unfortunately, a lot of times people do- don't use their intuition to determine whether it's fake or not. And it's sad because a lot of people, scammers, uses emotion to scam these people. And I know we were talking earlier, if it has your name on it, it doesn't mean that the money is there for you immediately. And in a check form, it takes a couple of days for it to quote unquote go through. And when it's a fake check, it'll just bounce in a couple of days. And it's even more sad because those checks, when they do bounce, those people are out of that money and they have to pay it back.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Just because it has your name on it and it sounds too good to be true, unfortunately, it is. You wouldn't expect your next door neighbor to, give you a cup of sugar as well as, like 4 or 5 grand worth of money or anything like that for something that you weren't necessarily expecting. So that's the biggest thing, is to trust your instincts, trust your gut, and kind of realize, if this were to happen to someone else, would I be as suspicious if it happened to me? So I know here at the branch, one situation that I had encountered was that we had a person here who was trying to deposit a check, and unfortunately the ATM wouldn't take it. And everyone knows how that goes, where it's like, I'm trying to do something ended up happening, it's inconvenient for me, now I have to do an extra step. And
Right.
I'm really thankful in the end that they ended up coming in. But at the time, you have to do your due diligence, and you have to ask questions and kind of figure out what's going on. So we had a gentleman who was looking to deposit a check that they had received. So with that being said, they received this through next day air. They weren't expecting to get this check this quickly. And it was something that they had initiated through the internet, something that they were doing online, that whether it was applying for a job, answering an ad, or anything like that. And so this was unfortunately during the middle of lockdown. So a lot of people have been displaced in regards to jobs or not being able to, kind of live life as usual. And
Yeah.
so they were commiserating online saying, oh, this happened and that happened. And now I'm trying to find, the next big thing to invest my time in, to work for, or anything like that. And a person from the internet reached out and then said, hey, we noticed that you're having such a hard time here, especially with your current situation. We want to give you money to get back on your feet. And this person, being as trusting as they can, is like, on their feet, trying to get things working out. And so, hey, someone's giving me money. That's awesome. Like, I definitely need help, and I need help to get kind of back into the way of life I'm used to. So, yeah, I'll absolutely deposit this. So they came in with a check written for 5 figures. First and foremost, anything that's just that out of the ordinary, especially with the dollar amount, we tend to ask questions for, namely, were you expecting this check? Did
Mhm.
they have any certain instructions? Did they tell you not to talk to us? Is that why you're trying to deposit it, through the ATM or anything like that? And so one of the biggest things that I had personally noticed was just the font sizes were just a little wonky, a little out of place. And then seeing where it came from, this party had brought in the next day envelope that they brought in, and you see it and it's like, okay, well, it's looks like it's coming from the Midwest. The company on the check is located in the Pacific Northwest. The mailing that it was sent from was the South. Why are all these states being involved for
Yes.
something as
3 different
supposedly
addresses.
streamlined? Yeah, and so with our policy here in the branch, if a check is over a certain dollar amount, and if it's a certified check, whether it's money order, official check, cashier's check, anything like that, we do call and verify these just to A, treat them like cash and make them immediately available, and B, verify legitimacy. Yes, it is a little more time out of your end, but the biggest thing is we want to make sure that everything's above board, everything's hunkadory, all that good stuff. So I did my due diligence. I verified this check, and then this other financial institution told me that it was no good. It was threw up red flags on their system. Looking into the check itself, it looks like it was a HOA that was trying to help this person get on their feet, coming from an account associated with an insurance group. And then, same thing. Why are all these people involved for something as straightforward as this? And
Right.
so we ended up unfortunately verifying that this check was no good. It was an illegitimate, fraudulent item that we were unable to negotiate. And say if the ATM did take it, this person would be out 5 figures. That's
Yep.
more than my car is worth. That's
Yes,
a
yeah.
down payment for a home. Like that's quite a large number. And if we just took it as is and look, treated it like cash to make it immediately available, this person would be on the hook for it. And especially with the situation that they had, stated online or on the internet, just the fact that they were down on their feet, this wouldn't help at all. And
No.
so that's one of the biggest things is we do tend to ask additional questions, to figure out a little more of the story and trying to make sure that everything is all good, because the last thing that I would like to see is someone else being taken advantage of and then being
Exactly.
liable for this dollar amount when in the end it was just fake. And that's such a tragedy. And to, especially with you giving out the statistics and kind of hearing that, because not all fraud is committed by the fraudsters. They
Right.
absolutely rope in multiple people, other parties, or anything like that, so that way they can get away with it. And then you're on the hook for, believing something is better than it actually is.
Yeah, that's so sad. I know you said unfortunately you guys had to tell the member it was a fake check, but I know in the long run it helped them out. So I don't think it's unfortunate. I think it's very fortunate that you were there for the member and to protect them and the credit union as well. Um, I know we have these policies set in place to protect everyone. And like you were saying, trust your instincts. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Look at the check. If something's off on it, then that should raise a red flag in your mind. And again, we're at the credit union, we're here and we've been trained to look at that and find those red flags to verify that it is in fact a fake check. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing is that situation, it looked, fairly suspicious from the get-go. The story was fairly suspicious. And with that, that throws up a bunch of red flags. But I've had fraud before where it doesn't throw up those immediate red flags. And it's not until you do a little more digging that you realize that this is, a fraudulent item. I had a different person bring in a check for a job that they had did that they were able to answer for. They did the whole job in and of itself. This was a younger person, still trying to get things figured out, kind of still in school, all that. And so I ended up receiving this check. And then with that policy still in place, I did have to verify this item. Well, looking up this institution that I need to call and verify, we always use the internet to verify phone numbers, verify addresses, all that stuff, because we can't necessarily take the check at its word, even if it is a legitimate check, even if it is a
Right.
fraudulent check, a personal check, anything like that. We do utilize other resources to make sure that I'm not calling the fraudsters directly. So I was looking up this institution online and I was unable to find it. So, not necessarily a red flag, just because there are institutions that'll abbreviate their names or they only are able to be looked up under an acronym or anything like that. So, that didn't throw me off. So, I had called this first institution and they were unable to verify the item. I was off on the name by 2 words. So, I looked up the correct institution and I still couldn't find it. And then I found out while looking for a phone number to verify this item that they had merged with another credit union.
Oh,
So, yeah, so I called this new credit union, that being the end result of this merger, and I had asked them, "Oh, how long has it been since you've merged over? Was it a big transition? Anything like that?" Because in our industry, that does happen quite often. Other credit unions will kind of brand together underneath a new name. Their field of membership expands, so their name expands with it. So after calling the institution that they had merged with, I found out that they had merged together about 5 years ago. And this check in my hand was written 2 days prior. So there's absolutely no reason this check made to this old credit union should be as new as it is. And so, speaking with this other representative and finally realizing that there's absolutely no credit union under this name, that's when we realized it was fraud. And so, with that, it's fairly obvious with the first glance at the first situation that, yeah, a little suspicious, you know,
mhm.
especially with the large dollar amount and the weird story. And then with the other situation, we only found out it was fraud just by doing our due diligence and being compliant, verifying these items and trying to make sure that we do have legitimacy from it. So,
Wow. That took, yeah, that one took a lot more digging to find that that was actually a fake check.
yeah, and needless to say, it wasn't necessarily anything of the check itself that threw a red flag. So if it
Right.
wasn't for the fact that we had, followed our procedures to make sure everything was correct, we would have never known until much after. And then this, young person would have been out this money for the very first check they would have deposited here at the new
Yeah.
financial institution. And I know with most financial institutions, they do place any and all personal checks on a certain business day hold. And all that is just for your safety. Like, I
Right.
understand the inconvenience of it, oh, this and that. But in the end, we're not here to, keep your money away from you. We're here to make sure that everything's above board, legitimate, and that you're not being taken advantage of. Because I hate hearing about how someone who maybe was older or maybe wasn't necessarily aware of the situation, gets just taken advantage of from people who claim they're part of a government agency or,
Yeah.
especially now that COVID has happened and all of these checks have been sending out. We've just been unfortunately seeing just more of an uptick of fraud, of fake checks, of people being roped into sketchy situations. And
Yeah.
we're here for knowledge. We're here to help. We're just here to make sure that everything's happening correctly, because fraud happens. It doesn't look the same each and every time, but it happens constantly. And all we're
Yes.
trying to do is just make sure that you're aware of what to look for, to educate yourself, and to realize that, hey, if this is happening to your grandparent, to your neighbor, to your coworker, maybe you should say something and, take an extra step to figure out what's happening and why you were sent this or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Kai. I know as years go on, unfortunately, fraud numbers do increase, and the US loses everybody loses more and more money every single year. So as much as I would love to say fraud is disappearing, it is not. So it's only better for all of us to be on our toes, and for people like you who are on the front line at an institution to be there for members, to look out for them and protect them and their money.
Exactly, because that's all we're here for in the end. We're here to make sure that you're educating yourself on how to utilize your money, how to end up receiving and dispersing money, how to make sure that your financial well-being is good, is set, and
Yes.
that, and yes, it may be inconvenient being on the outside, not realizing what we do in such a short amount of time, to realize that we are constantly looking at checks. We're constantly trying to figure out the story. And all it is just to keep you and your money safe.
Exactly. I always say that frontline workers like yourself, Kai, always wear many hats. And I like to say that you play different roles. So you're a teacher, you're a mathematician, and you're also an FBI investigator. So I always say that you play many roles to fulfill members' needs and to protect them. So again, thank you so much for sharing your stories and and sharing what to look out for members like myself even to look for when it comes to fraud.
Exactly. And then we're always here for questions. Even if you don't have a fraudulent item, it's always good to just ask, hey, what's the newest scam out there? What have you been seeing? How can I make sure to take steps to keep myself safe, to keep my family safe, or anything like
Mhm.
that? Last thing you want to hear is grandma deposited a fake check and she's out a couple $100s or a couple $1,000s. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want that to happen to my family. And that's all I'm
Mhm.
trying to do, is make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else's.
Yeah, never. You're awesome, Kai. Well, thank you so much. And again, like you were saying, if anybody has any questions or wants to find out more information on anything that they have or have received, stop by one of our local branches to ask any one of us to look over the check and get a second pair of eyes to make sure that it is in fact legit or if it's not.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me today, Tyler.
Of course. Thank you, Kai. I appreciate all of your time and everything that you do.
Awesome. Well, have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Well, that was really interesting, Andrea. What did you think?
I thought it was awesome. Great information, great stories. People are more aware of what they should watch out for. And if it's too good to be true, reach out and ask. We're here for our members.
Yeah, yeah. Call our contact center, come into a branch, talk to our branch staff. Obviously, as you heard in the episode, they know what to look for, and they've seen a lot of things. The other thing I would remind our listeners is, visit our blog. I know we have several articles that we've written about various forms of fraud and things to look out for. So that's a resource that we have out there for our members, to be on the lookout.
That's awesome. I love this episode.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and I will see you at the next episode, Andrea.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Bye.